As proposed, and it's been mentioned a lot, we are trying to cut money for the taxpayer and return money, send money back home to the people who earn it and who deserve to have the money back in their pocketbook to make the decisions of how they want to spend their money. This department does not help anyone in the upstate. I don't know how it helps anyone throughout the state. I've heard a lot of arguments up here and complaining and whining, whatever, about being here today. This is very serious. We are here to talk about taxpayer money. We campaigned on the same premise of our president in DC. Doge is very, very popular. So I don't see anyone in this chamber outside of a few of us that's trying to cut money, be serious as to why we're here, and be honest about the taxpayer dollar. Another thing that deserves to be mentioned is that we have a supermajority in this state, yet there's a Democrat up here that's explaining and defining where we're going to spend our money. No one's talking about that. I'll take questions.
Mr. Gatch is recognized for a question. Mr. Moore, did you have a question also?
Good morning, Ms. Cromer. Thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
A moment ago, you said that you wanted to be serious about cutting money and sending that money back to the people in your district, right?
Absolutely. That's what I campaigned on.
Very good. So then, would you and the rest of the Freedom Caucus members, would you guys agree that we can start by getting together and agreeing that all the money in the budget for your district, we can start there, and we'll just cut out the money for your constituents and the Freedom Caucus districts as well. And you can lead by example by cutting the funds that go to your district to show everybody how serious you are about sending money back to the public.
So if you are agreeing to take all the money for the corporate welfare that this state has given from my taxpayers and return the money back to the taxpayers, you take every penny that the people in my district have paid to this state in previous years and now, and you return that back to them, I promise you that they will make better spending of their money than you could on any day. Because the taxpayers, that what you're saying is they're trusting
that's not my question.
Wait, I'm sorry. I've got the well. If you want to come and speak after me, you're welcome to. So what I'm saying is our taxpayers sent us here for a reason. We won our campaigns for a reason. We have their money, and so you're saying that because we campaigned on cutting funding, decreasing the scope of government, and that's what I am here to do. I'm speaking for myself. But we have to be serious about the money, the budget, and what we're doing here. And you're proposing that because I'm trying to be responsible with the taxpayer dollar that you're going to cut them off? Are you going to return all the money that they paid into this state? I'm unsure what you're proposing here.
I'm proposing that you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. I'm proposing that if you're really serious about this, then you start at home. And if sending money back to the taxpayers is something that you want to do, then let's start by getting together with you and the Freedom Caucus members, and we can look at every single dollar that goes to your district, and we can stop that. All of the money that funds things in your district, we're going to get rid of that so that you can be true to your promise that you said that you campaigned on.
And so what you're saying, by doing that, you're going to take the hardworking money of the people in District 6, that they go to work every day, they pay their taxes every week or month whenever their paycheck, or previous, in their sales tax and their property tax and everything else, not to mention these corporations that have come in, and we have given millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to come in, and all this overdevelopment and all the tax credits that you've given, and you're going to take those and give them back and return them to the hardworking people of Anderson County.
You want to cut money, right?
I want to return money to the taxpayer.
And you do that by cutting money from the budget, correct?
I am saying, yes, we cut money from wasteful spending, and that's what we should be doing, taking it seriously. I've seen some of the people in here, I hear a lot about social media and everybody trying to, get their clicks or whatever, but The way that we complete our campaign promises is to take this budget seriously and to cut money. And by doing
what I'm
that,
asking you.
I'm saying that the supermajority of people in South Carolina, they have voted. They want their money back. They want to cut the wasteful spending and the crap.
Well, let's just
And if that
start with your district.
Excuse me, if that means that we stop allowing Democrats in this state to determine where our money is going, then that's what we need to do. If we need to comb through every line item for every agency, they need to come up here. If you want to
You're
open,
making it too complicated, Ms. Cromer. I'm just talking about something simple. You're throwing out all this complication to distract from my question. If you want to be true to your campaign promise, why don't you go ahead and start with your own district and the districts of the Freedom Caucus members? Let's just say all the funding that the state provides to your district to cut money to stay true to your campaign promise, we're going to start with your district.
So you're saying that you're going to take the taxpayer dollars and return every penny to them? And thank you. Next.
Mr. Collins is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Cromer. You mentioned that you campaigned on cuts.
Yes.
Have you governed on cuts?
By what? What do you mean specifically?
That's my question. Have you governed on cuts?
How so?
Well, have you put in the work? I mean, have you attended meetings?
Yes.
Have you, do you see what's on this desk here? This is just one subcommittee meeting packet. 10, 12 different notebooks. In this body, the governing doesn't occur at the 12th hour here. Do you know when we start? Let's just use the EIA penny. Do you know what the EIA penny is?
What is that?
The EIA penny.
No, what is it?
Well, it's 1 cent on the sales
Oh,
tax
the penny.
that goes towards education. Do you know when we start doing the EIA budget?
No.
And that's my point, is do you campaign or do you govern?
See, what you don't understand is this is part of the process right here, what we're doing in public. Bring it up.
I think
Let's
that's
talk
where
about
you're
it.
mistaken.
Did I
think
say
that's where
anything
you're
about
mistaken.
that? No, I think you're mistaken of the way the process works. The people want us to cut funding. We're growing the budget.
So
We're talking about decreasing the scope of government, and then yet we're passing the largest budget in state history.
and you think today or this week is when we pass the budget?
I think yesterday, today, tomorrow, every day. I don't think we should pass this budget
And
until we show
I'm just
true
challenging you.
cuts.
I'm just challenging you that you're wrong on that. Do you know that on the EIA, we started that back in September? We've been
That's
working on this for over half a year. So going back to yesterday, when you and the Freedom Caucus put up 100+ amendments to cut $1 billion, where were you for the past year on this budget?
Oh, I've been working for my constituents. What I'm saying is,
Working
this is
for
my
your
voice. This is my
campaigning.
people right here, right now. This is part of the process. I don't understand what you're saying.
I get it. You're campaigning. That's perfectly fine.
No,
but there's
I'm
a difference
sorry.
between
What we're
campaigning
saying
and
here
governing.
is
All right,
that we're working on
Ladies and
the budget.
gentlemen, Ms. Cromer, let him finish the question, then you can answer. Let's not speak over each other on either side. Thank you.
It's to my next point of let's be serious about the budget. Do you know that we cut some funding in the EIA penny?
Do you know that this is the largest budget in state history that we're passing? We're not cutting
So you
anything.
don't know that?
You may be cutting something, but not extra spending. We're growing the budget here. And what we're saying is that the people need tax relief. They need money. We have our people at home that are seeing all this crap
You and
that
I
we're
are
spending
neighbors,
money
correct? District neighbors, aren't we?
on. Our districts, yes.
Our districts are socioeconomically roughly the same, correct?
I'll take your word for that. Seems like it could be comparable.
When you keep saying, let's return money back to our people, what do you think your average constituent pays in state taxes?
Probably around $2,500 a family.
And that's what you think is average. What would more than 50% of your constituents pay in state taxes?
Total,
Total.
just take that hard math and multiply it times the,
Would you be surprised that it's zero?
That what? That they're paying
At
in
income
state
tax.
taxes?
Let's keep it to income tax. Would you be surprised it's zero?
That they are paying zero in income taxes?
Yes.
Well, what we're saying here is that every penny that anybody that pays to this state, what they're asking us to do by the supermajority of the election that just happened is that they don't want us to pass the largest budget in history. They want us to be more responsible
That
with
doesn't
their
answer my
money.
question.
That's the bottom line. I think you're missing the point here with this question is
I
that
see the point.
what our constituents want is for us to cut spending and to return money to them and stop the waste, stop the bureaucracy that's hurting the everyday person.
These are
in
good
South
sound
Carolina.
bites. These are good sound bites, but
Thank you.
I'm just
I'll take the next question.
so be it.
Mr. Moore is recognized.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Ms. Cromer, for taking my question. Slightly different line of questioning. My question is a little bit more about, I guess, strategy. Did you know that there are probably a decent amount of people in this chamber who agree with the idea that we should find ways to be more responsible in spending taxpayer money? Do you understand that, or do you believe that?
I don't, because we're passing the largest budget in state history when everyone has had the opportunity to cut spending. But yet, this budget is not reflective of that, of our values, of what we said that we were going to cut spending and cut the government tape. We're not doing that in this budget. So no, I do not believe that to be true.
Well, let me ask this question. Let me ask it this way. I've heard this secondhand because nobody has come to me personally and said this. I've heard secondhand through social media posts that there's an alternative budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Does it exist in a form like this where people can actually review it? Does y'all's budget exist in a form
Lots
like
of pages.
this?
See, if you have read through that budget, you would see that there's a lot of old things in there that need to be cut. We're very simple. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated.
My question is very simple. All I was asking is your alternative, which some people may think is a good idea, does it exist in a form that we can review?
Yes, we look at the amendments presented, look at the press release that was put out there, and we're going by it amendment by amendment. So what I'm saying is, I hear your talking points, I hear what you're trying to say, but what we're trying to do is different than what we promised the people at home. We said we were going to cut spending. This budget doesn't do that. It's growing government. It's increasing spending. It's the largest budget in history.
I understand that
the
you and I both are
supermajority of South
exchanging talking
Carolina
points.
agrees that we need to cut spending. They're sick and tired of the waste and the theatrics.
I'm just asking if there is a budget. I was told there's an alternative budget. I want to know if it exists in a way that we can review it. Because I've heard speakers say that they believe in transparency. I've heard people say they believe in efficiency. I have not seen anything transparent, and I don't believe it's efficient to drop 100+ amendments the morning of and take the first hour and a half to categorize them. I don't know. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I promise you I'm not. This is not a Mr. Gatch question. I'm just asking if these are legitimate amendments, which I'm giving y'all the benefit of the doubt. These are legitimate amendments. If they are, what's bad about giving us the opportunity to review them in advance or discuss them? Why were they all dropped at the last second?
Well, as you may be aware, last Tuesday, the budget, that brick, was dropped on our desk. And so after reviewing and going through and compiling the notes that we had, or I had, from the different meetings, that's where you come up with this stuff. Started submitting the things. I'm unsure what you're saying, that what is wrong with the process of bringing the amendments forward and having open discussion. I'm not opposed to open discussion. I'm not opposed to staying here all week or next week. If anyone wants to reopen any of these sections and propose any cutting of spending, let's revisit that. Get up here, make your plea, but don't say that you're trying to make cuts or whatever when we're passing the largest budget in history. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand what you're trying to do if we're not here to cut budget for the taxpayers. The people have made it clear they want their money returned to them. They want us to govern and make the effort to return the money and the power back to them. By growing government and passing the largest budget in history, we're not doing either of those things.
Now, I understand that. My position, like I said, is about the process. It's not about the personalities. It's not about the caucuses.
This is the process.
I understand.
What we're doing right now, this is the process.
I'm asking you if you believe that potentially engaging other members with these ideas previous to yesterday morning would have been a more effective way to address them.
We've had conversations. I think the most effective way is that if there was any genuine desire for that Ways and Means Committee, which I'm not on, to decrease the spending, it would be proposed in the budget, but it's not. We're in the supermajority of South Carolina, and we have Democrats chairing subcommittees that don't have to be, that's making decisions as to where we're going to spend our money. That's not what the taxpayers of South Carolina want. They want money returned to them. They don't want to continue passing the largest budget in history and growing government. It's not that hard. There's not $1 that's being cut from this. This is larger than last year. If we even got back to last year's budget, it's still too big. There's not been a genuine effort in this body to help the taxpayer. And to sit here and talk about the process, this is the process. If anyone was serious, why were cuts not made before? But to stand in this body and say that we are passing the budget for the people, not my people, not the taxpayers, maybe the lobby and the special interest groups, but not the people of South Carolina. I know who I serve, and it ain't nobody in here.
No, I understand that. And again, I understand you don't like my questions, and my questions are more about, like I said, process and strategy. I just don't think that this is the way, I don't think this is the best way to do it. And I've heard there's an alternative budget. And the basic question, is there an actual document that shows?
We're presenting it now, and I would love for you to present an alternative budget. I mean, it's very simple. Let's stay here.
Well,
let's work on it. Let's show the people in South Carolina that we are serious and we meant what we said and the promises that we made when we sat at their dining room tables, when they invite you in their home, or when you're sitting beside them in church and you're telling them or you're listening to their issues and listening how the government is hurting them in certain ways, these different bureaucracies. Let's take that seriously. I do.
No, I do. First of all, I haven't had many constituents tell me the government's hurting them. I do think we have made real meaningful headway in tax reform, and we need more of it. I'm not sure this is the best way of accomplishing it, but I do have...
You've not had a constituent. Sorry, I know you're asking the question. So my statement to you would be, I've had many constituents call me, the DMV, DOT, DHEC, DSS, Department of Alcohol and Drugs. I've had constituents call me from all over for different issues, business owners calling me for different regulations, things that are hurting and straining the people. I'm surprised that your constituents don't call you regarding those issues. Maybe y'all have something special happening in Spartanburg that you need to share with everyone else in the chamber, but I promise you, weekly.
No, I have constituent issues. I think we all do, and I think we all try to help our constituents through issues. I'm not sure cutting government agencies or just canceling them altogether is the best way to address our constituent issues. But here's another thing that caused some people concern, and this is legitimate, and I think this is fair, all right? I'm not trying to attack you. We heard extensive discussion yesterday about core functions of government, all right? And I'm imagining we'll continue to hear those. Then we heard that the Confederate Relic Room and archiving our state history is a core function of government. And then less than 2 minutes later, most people voted against the State Museum. So it's hard for us who believe in some of the things you'll say to understand what your principles are. When we hear that we're standing on principle, we only fund core functions of government, and then we vote contrary to that, it's hard to take everything else at face value. Do you understand why people are hesitant on that?
Well, I don't understand a lot of the things the people in this chamber believe. But I'll say that there's been a lot of interest and a lot of talk about different votes. I would say if anyone in this chamber is serious and you have concerns about certain agencies, let's open that section back up. I invite you to let's take a vote to open different sections up. Let's go line by line for every one of the sections and decide in those sections what money we're going to cut, because no one here is cutting any money so far, voted against every penny. But we had the option to open up the sections. We can go by these places line by line, whatever. Let's cut spending. I'm not opposed to that. You want to open the State Museum up and go line by line and find some cutting. No one is offering to do that except for the Freedom Caucus members so far. Who's serious? I mean, if you want to talk about serious, like I said, let's buckle up. I'm here for it.
No, I understand that. I just trying to understand why in one breath you would say that archiving history of the state's core function of government, in the next breath you would vote against the State Museum. That's all I was trying to reconcile.
Well, I think you're talking about my votes, which I'm
just
here to
talking
vote
about
for my
votes in general.
constituents, but I'm just saying if you want to open those things back up and let's go line by line and find money to cut, let's do it. I'm here for it.
I think that's all the questions I have. So just to clarify, there is no...
Caskey has some questions in case you're wondering.
Maybe you want me to ask some more then. But there's no alternative budget document. It's just an amendment process. Is
No,
that
we have a document.
Has that,
Interested in it?
No, in the interest of transparency, I'd like to see it. Did y'all have public hearings or take any public input on
Our
that?
Chairman Pace will be happy to, if you want to take a recess, we'll be happy to take it in the back and have full discussion on it.
When did that get published?
That right there,
Y'all's alternative budget document, when was it published?
yesterday morning, and probably some will still come today.
Okay, so it's still in works. Did y'all have any hearings on it?
We had meetings, yes.
With constituents, with agencies, with who?
Listen, we met with thousands, tens of thousands of our constituents throughout the year. We never stop.
Oh, collectively or?
I mean, it's some groups, yeah, we have group meetings.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that the hearings that aren't streamed 100% of the time, I don't understand where you're coming from that process of the hearing.
No, I'm just asking.
We hear the people. Those are the hearings that we have. We hear the people.
Now, I'd like to get a copy of the alternative budget, though, so I can look at it, because there may be things that some people can agree to in it.
Would you like to recess so we could discuss that?
No, I think we're
agree
going to have plenty of time during these amendments for me to look at it. So, but I'll get Mr. Pace to share me his copy here.
Are you interested in cutting spending? Are you serious?
Am I serious in cutting spending? I'm serious in cutting spending in a serious way.
Yeah.
I'm not serious in coming in here and putting up amendments to cancel entire state agencies and full-time employees without any research or without any data.
That's
I'm not
part of
interested
the
in that.
process.
Just like yesterday, I wasn't interested in people saying that the administration at the Citadel is fat and lazy and saying tuition, those are y'all's words.
Wait, who's y'all? I didn't say that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Mr. White said yesterday that tuition mitigation was something for fat and lazy administrations. That's what he said.
Well, I think if you want to talk about tuition mitigation, I'll tell you that it's like Biden's debt forgiveness on the front end, but the taxpayers are paying for it. So yes, I'm opposed to mitigation, and you're not making the point with that.
No, I'm just saying I'm okay with serious tax cuts if you want to be serious about them. I'm not okay coming in here saying things like that and canceling entire commissions and entire state agencies by amendment without any public input, without any data backing it up.
We have public input from our constituents, which is who I serve, which is who I'm here to answer to.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you answering my questions. We can agree to not agree on some things. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hyatt's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I pass over.
Thank you for taking my questions.
Excuse me.
Have you ever taken government money?
I don't talk
You
to
or your
people who put out.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Hyatt. I'm sorry, ma'am. If you'd speak,
to someone
I got to
who
speak
called
in.
me a pedophile protector. I pass over.
Hold on, Mr. Stavernakis. I'm sorry. I apologize, Ms. Cromer. If you'll say it in the microphone, I could not hear you.
I said I pass over taking questions from the majority leader who sent text messages calling me a pedophile protector. I will not speak to him.
The member speaking does not have to answer questions from any members choose not to. Mr. King is recognized. Yes, sir, Mr. Hyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple questions for you, Representative Cromer. Mr. Speaker, can you get us?
Folks, if you got conversations, we're devolving here while we're having a very important debate. If you got conversations, take them outside. Sergeant, assist me with some order. Mr. Hyatt, we're not on the amendment, we're on the section. I assume you meant on the section. I will add you to the list along with Mr. Bamberg, I believe. And Mr. King is recognized to ask Ms. Cromer a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple questions for you. And did you know that when the Democrats held control in South Carolina, that they shared power with the Republicans? Did you know that?
Well, I think what we're talking about here in this day and time in this chamber is not that day and time.
Well, let me say this to you.
I think everyone in here represents their people and should have a voice.
And you're 100% right. So you have answered my question as to why the Speaker and leadership have chosen to allow Democrats to have a voice. Did you know that we serve about the same amount of constituents that you serve, and the Speaker feels that our voices as minorities in this chamber should be heard so that we can effectively change lives in South Carolina, of all South Carolinians, not just the ones that are Republicans or Democrats, but people who are South Carolinians. Did you know that?
Well, I understand that everyone here has a voice, and this is the process. What we're doing right here today is bringing it all to the forefront. The supermajority of people in South Carolina, though, they have spoken of their wishes, and that's how we should be governing in this body. Because the people's voices, they made it heard this past election, or actually in this chamber, I guess for the last 2 years going into the third, where we've had the supermajority, they've made their wishes known. Now, did we hear them? I don't think so. Not by the judgment of the makeup of the leadership.
I have another question for you. Have you ever been in favor of government contracts?
Yes.
So
I think the process of a government contract, if done correctly, that's the way it should work. Are you talking about where businesses put in for contracts to do business with the government?
Well, let me ask you another question. You mentioned earlier that you were trying to mirror some of the things that are done in D.C. as well as
with the current president and what he's trying to do with the agenda
hold on one
that
second.
he has.
Ms. Speaker, I can't hear Ms. Cromer. I can't hear. I can't get my questions
Mr.
out.
King, you don't have to say anymore. I absolutely agree. Members, although Mr. Murphy can hear, the rest of us cannot. If you have conversations, please take them outside. Sergeant, we're going to need a little more assistance today. Members, this is a very important debate. Mr. King's recognized.
So my next question, well, is a question in reference to transparency and government welfare, as you have said that.
That's what, I'm sorry, I didn't.
You talked about government welfare.
Oh, yeah, corporate welfare.
Or
Yeah.
corporate welfare, government welfare, whatever. Did you know that during the pandemic that, my funeral home was one of the, my funeral home was one of the recipients of the PPP loans? Did you know that my funeral home paid that money back? I'm aware that your company was a part of people who received the PPP money. We're talking about responsibility, transparency, and making sure that the money get back to the people.
Right.
Did you all pay your money back that you all received from PPP?
So I think you've asked a couple questions. So the first I'll address is talking about the orders coming from DC. This body that we're in right now with the supermajority that has spoken in this past election, past two elections for this House chamber, is that they want change in the DC and in this state. What people don't realize is what's happening in this state. They trust us because we're closest to the people to do the work of the people. And what the president is trying to do in DC now, we could do right here, today, this week in South Carolina. Did you know that we have had a legislation for woke corporations of $1.3 billion come through this body without the process everyone in here loves to talk about?
Well, I guess.
Wait,
I
hold on,
guess,
excuse me. Everyone in here is talking about the process, but no one in here is talking about the Scout Motor deal that we passed in, 10, 12 days? It didn't go through the process. $1.3 billion, where's the return on investment of that? What's happening with that right now? Who had the hearing for that? I know that nobody asked me to hear anything about that until it came before this body, and it
Well,
was shoved down the taxpayers' throat.
guess-
Excuse me.
I guess, Ms. Cromer, but I was asking you a question that you have not
I have the...
Mr. King, let her finish answering, then Ms. Cromer, let him ask his question. I think he had asked you a three-part question, so if you're on part one, I think.
I appreciate you keeping up for that, Mr. Speaker. So I think in this body, what we need to be talking about is the real thing. The real thing is cutting the budget. There are things that have happened in this state. I guess it was, 5 years ago today? But where people in this chamber made decisions to shut our state down. A lot of people forget that. They say South Carolina didn't shut down. Well, I guarantee you, you ask the business owners, you ask the parents, you ask the students, you ask all the people who felt the pain if our state shut down, and I think you'll get a very different answer. Our state shut down. You put, by this body not making better decisions for the taxpayers, for the people of South Carolina, there was a lot of hurt and pain. And I'll say this to this body, and maybe it'll make you reconsider a lot of the decisions you're making, that if y'all didn't shut this state down, I wouldn't be here today. Because why I am here today is because I was seeing, it came to my attention that my representative wasn't representing the people. My representative was not, he was detached and away from the people. That's why I'm here today, is that y'all shutting the state down made everyday people at home make hard decisions. You made people at home, the suicide rate increased. Those people will never get those family members back again.
Well,
the decisions this body made during that time, our suicide rate increased, our children's mental health
well,
decreased.
I'm not going to have that blood on my
have a
hand, and I would
lot
appreciate you not
of
saying that
issues.
this chamber had people committing suicide. Secondarily, Ms. Cromer,
Decisions that people made.
there are decisions that we make individually. There are decisions that we make as a body. And there was a decision that my family and I made because we believe in this country, we believe in this state, and we returned our money to the people of the United States. My question to you, the $855,000, did your family return it? Since you're here saying that we need to protect the people of South Carolina, we need to protect the people of this country, did you return your PPP money?
So what
My
I'm
family
saying-
returned. We didn't get the $855,000
So you can
that
speak
your
at the
family
well. I'm
got.
going to answer your
Ms.
question. If you want time,
Ms.
you can
Cromer,
have
let
it.
him put a question mark on the end of it, and then you can answer it. Let's not speak over each other, please.
Yeah. So my thing is, and Ms. Cromer and everyone in here, Ms. Cromer and I have a cordial relationship, so
do.
it's nothing personal, but what gets me, did you know, as a legislator who comes here every day and work for the people of South Carolina, for people of the majority party, to say that I do not have a voice. That's the first thing. Secondarily, did you know that let me finish, that it bothers me when people say let's
Let him finish his question.
let's have transparency. I'm asking my question. Did you know that when people stand at that well and say we should have transparency, but then they have government contracts that the general public knows nothing about? Secondarily, they received $800 or probably $1 million through PPP money that they didn't pay back. But then they're saying that we need to cut the budget here in the state of South Carolina. As our state grows, as you know, and the budget will grow as our state grows, there is an issue and a problem, did you know, when people stand at that well and don't want to be transparent to the people of South Carolina like John King just did and said that our funeral home received PPP money and we returned it by payment to the people who gave it to us. My question to you, because I don't believe you can stand there and be transparent with the people of South Carolina and say we need to cut a budget if you haven't returned your money to the people of the United States.
So I appreciate your question. Let me try and answer several of those. One which I would reiterate to say that you do have a voice. I did not say you didn't have a voice. That was actually, I think, part of my statement that you do. As far as the PPP loan, our company, like many, had difficult decisions to make during COVID. when this chamber shut our state down. It was not an easy decision to make. So we took the PPP loan along with several other businesses. Did we pay it back? No. Did a lot of other businesses? No. Are we going to criticize businesses for making the decisions that we made because this body shut our business down? And we employ over 100 employees and over 120 employees. And you're going to say that during that time when people were sending their kids home, sending people home, that we should not have employed people, giving them worth to come in and work, because people want to work. And if they want to work, we need to let them. We were daily. I don't know if you realize this. The funeral home business, I'm sure during COVID, I've heard y'all did not have to, your business increased because of the deaths from COVID and the different realities of COVID. But I'll say this with our business, when we're looking at the bottom line every day because of the decisions that this body made and our sales are going down and we have to keep these families up. Yeah, we took the money because of the decisions this state made to shut it down and to send our people home where they went into depression. The people that went home, they didn't go back to work. We saw that with the unemployment rates. We saw that with a lot of things. So I'm not ashamed of the decisions we made. What I'm ashamed of is the decisions that this state made us have to make.
So let me ask you another question, and I appreciate your comment. So the people who will lose the jobs up under your budget, and the Freedom Caucus budget, and when we come before this body to say that we need to now, because those people are out of work, to support them through the process because they can't find a job.
There's lots of jobs to be had in South
Let me finish.
Carolina.
Are you going to be willing, just as the United States was willing to help you when your business was down, are you going to be willing and vote with the rest of us who are concerned about those citizens who will not have a job because of your cuts? Are you going to be willing to help us make sure that their kids have food on their table? Are you going to make sure that they have heat in their house? Are you going to make sure that they have somewhere to go and lay their heads at night? Are you going to be able to give them that PPP to help them survive during that time that you cut the budget and cut their way of life? Are you going to help them?
So what you're saying is that we have these bureaucracies that are employing people unnecessarily. So
No,
on
I'm not.
the taxpayers, you're taking their money to pay these people who aren't performing or living up to the values of the people of South Carolina. So they're going to lose their job because they're not performing. So that's already like a type of welfare, you would say, because they have a job that they're not doing. So to say that, to associate the COVID shutdown with the unemployment line, that's a very disingenuous statement.
Did you know that the people who
I'm still
got
answering your
unemployment
question.
had to pay
If
it
we can
back?
get
Some of them had to pay
Mr.
it back?
Speaker, if you want me to answer your question,
Sure,
I'm
I
at the
want you to
well.
answer my question.
So I do appreciate that we could have a civil conversation.
Most definitely.
And we usually do. And we agree on some things. But I would say that to associate the COVID shutdown with the unemployment line because someone is not performing or just creating a job for someone to have a job, those are not related. But we could also look at the unemployment rate versus the open jobs in South Carolina. There are jobs to be had. There are lots of jobs. We hear about jobs all the time. All this overdevelopment and the economic development, bringing jobs. We don't have employees. We know that. Anyone who owns a business, we know that we have lots of job openings that are not being filled. So to say that we're going to cut government, these people are going to lose their jobs because there's not a job for them. We're not going to continue to prop them up on welfare from the people when they could go get a job somewhere else that's not on the taxpayer dime. So no, I think unemployment and COVID shutdown, those are different things.
Well, I mean,
if as a business owner, if we have to shut a department down because it's no longer performing or it doesn't meet the needs of our business, and we can't take that employee and find another department for them to work in, As a business owner, you have those decisions to make to keep your business going. You can't just hire 50 people because where are you going to get the money? Just because? I mean, if a business wants to do that, that's different. But if a state agency on the taxpayer dime, if you're expecting us to hire people to just so they can come in and clock in every day and then get a check every month, every week, however the payment process works, those are not the same thing.
Well,
this is not a private business. This is taxpayer money, which is something that we are here talking about this week that we need to be responsible with.
Well, Ms. Cromer, I
Every
can't say
penny.
that I've gone into those offices and saw people not working. I don't believe that you have gone into every agency and looked at every employee and what they do
I
to
would love
say
to.
that. Let me finish. I allowed you to finish. To say, did you know? To say that they are not working, for one thing. The second thing, and then I'm gonna sit down after this. We talk about the PPP money, being transparent about that and taking government money. Did you know that I got an email that said to my family that we could opt and have it forgiven? We did not opt for the forgiveness of that loan. We paid it back.
Well,
So I'm pretty sure that you got that same email, and I was wondering, why did you all not opt to pay it back? If you are concerned about the debt that we have in this country and ensuring that that money gets back to lower the debt of this country, you know, $1 million is a lot of money. And if you're going to cut these people, what, 1.4 million? I'm pretty sure with the contracts that you all have with the state, with our technical schools that you know, with Anderson School District, with the governor's school, you know, let's be transparent about
Commission of
what
the
we all
Blind,
do.
the
Wait a
DOJ.
minute. My question is, why aren't we being, or why are you and others up here talking about government assistance, government welfare, when you are recipients of government contracts?
So I would answer, I guess that's another couple of questions, and please let me know if I don't answer one of them. But so to the PPP loan, I'm glad that you're thankful that your business was able to pay it off. I know that, like I mentioned before, COVID probably helped your sales or your business exponentially, where a lot of the businesses in South Carolina that are not funeral home owners, our businesses were not the same and put on the same playing field as that, which I think that's different kinds of businesses, but thankful for that. And what was your second part of your question?
The government contracts that your company has with the state, like the tech schools, the Anderson District, the governor's school, why aren't you saying that you will eliminate those contracts, cut government spending? I think when we decide that we want to help the government and stop government contracts that you know, or government assistance, that we should reflect and look within first. And if we can help in that process, did you know that we should raise our hands first and say we will be the first to be a part of that cut if we are accepting government contracts? Let's raise our hands and say, okay, we'll be the first at the door. Representative Stavanakas or to the speaker or whoever, or Representative Bannister, who's at the ahead of Ways and Means, that you know, you could have gone and sat down with him and say, you know what, my family receives X, Y, Z in government contracts. We want to be the first to be cut. Because we believe so much in our budget that we'll take the lead. Me and my family will take the lead. We raise our hand and take that cut. Why didn't you do that?
So I'll say with the government contract part, I don't know if you have government contracts or not, but it's a bidding process. And so what you do is it's a long bid. It's usually very intense. Some of them are sealed bids. So it's a competitive process in which they pick the best provider. And I think that's different than what you're speaking to, is that we provide a service to these companies, which, by the way, if anyone in here is interested, you could FOIA the contracts, or I'd be happy to bring anyone that requests it. I'd be happy to send you a copy of it.
Ms. Bernstein's recognized for a question.
Okay, thank you. So Representative Cromer, you continue to say there's a supermajority in this state. Can you hear me?
Again, if we'd get some order, the conversation's up here.
Thank you.
There was so much that has been said from the well. It's really hard for me to respond to too much. And, you know, I don't get up here too much and try to question, but there were lots of inaccuracies that I heard, and I don't want to belabor any of the points. I don't want to talk about PPP loans. I think we all want to be transparent. And I think a little bit of what Mr. King was trying to point out to is maybe a little bit of the hypocrisy that you're spewing from the well, and trying, and I think other people who have questioned, trying to point that out. We all want to be transparent. We have a balanced budget in South Carolina.
It's constitutional, yes.
We also have a population increase. So if we have an increase in budget, increase of income coming, money coming into our budget, we have a bigger population now than we did 2 years ago. We're one of the fastest growing states. So I think really to be transparent, to talk about the increase in the budget, the largest budget we ever had, is a lot attributed to the population growth. But let me get to the question. And you talk about a supermajority in this state. What is a supermajority? What does that mean?
It means that in this body, we have a supermajority of people, of Republicans.
Okay, in the chamber, are you not, but you're not saying in the state. You're
The
just
voice
saying
of
in
the
the
people
chamber.
of the state, this body reflects the state.
Do you understand the concept of gerrymandering?
I do. I believe there was a lawsuit about that, and I believe there's gerrymandering in my district.
And there may be. There may
was.
be. But really, if you look at the composition of the state, it is not a supermajority in this state. Most likely it ebbs and flows, but I would admit it's probably a 60-40, 65-35 percentage of, if you want to get partisan, Republican, Democrat. But there is no Democrat or Republican that only has a pothole or only has diabetes.
Unless you live in Travis Moore's district.
While we represent our respective districts, we also have a responsibility to everybody in the state and everybody in our district. So when you talk about supermajority this, you do have Democrats and independents and people who did not vote for you in your district. Are you saying you're only going to represent the people that you hear from and the people that think like you do?
So what I'm saying is that on the campaign, I had my campaign promises, my campaign platform. That's what got me elected. So when I'm here in this body making decisions on every line item in this budget, I remember what I told my constituents. Now, so I hold to my campaign platform for sure. Everyone in here has different campaign promises, and I respect that. What I don't respect are the people who have campaign promises and they forget them as soon as they come through the chamber door. Now, to the respect of...
But you can't say that about me.
Well, no, and I didn't. I didn't. I said,
I'm
and
just
there's
saying.
some people that can say that and some people that can't, and I think that's what reflects that. So the gerrymandering, I agree with you. I would love to see clean districts drawn. I believe in that. I would love to work with you on that.
And I think we
there are
probably
some,
agree on more things than we don't. And for you to want to not compromise and only have your way or no way.
compromise in
I
what?
think is just in general,
I will never compromise my morals or my values.
Well,
But I mean, in every business deal, if there's more good and just a little bit of bad,
I'm
that's
not
what
saying
compromise is about.
no, I'm talking about compromise and getting things accomplished. You compromise with your children, you compromise with your husband. It does not mean you're sacrificing your moral compass, but in order to progress, you have to learn to compromise. And what I hear from you and other people who, I don't even want to say the Freedom Caucus, but other people who are in your caucus, is you don't want to compromise. You don't want to work with Democrats. I think it's important in this body that we learn to work together and try to find things that we can agree on.
Well, I
'Cause we're
have
not gonna
actually
agree on
shared
everything.
amendments with Democrats. I've signed on, and I've worked with Democrats.
But, you know, I've been a
If it's
recipient of
something
your
that's-
criticism. You have criticized Representative Stafranakis for being subcommittee chair people who represent, I mean, we only have 2, maybe 3 subcommittee chair people out of all of the subcommittees.
That's 3 too many,
And
according to
no,
the people of South
but
Carolina.
No, it's not, because you're saying that 100% of people in South Carolina, or the supermajority, which is not a supermajority, are Republicans, and that's not the case. Were you outraged? Did you have this similar same criticism when President Trump appointed 2 Democrats to head his cabinet agencies? Yes or no?
Well, what I'm talking about is right here.
But I'm curious. Did you have any outrage
I hear
or
you, but
criticism
what I'm talking
for that?
about is right here in this body, what I know about and is closest to home. What the cabinet or whatever you're talking, I'm not aware of that. I'm sure I would have an opinion on it. But what we're talking about is right here in this body, and that's what we're addressing today. And I'm not going to get off on that. With
So you
I'm
don't
not
think I would be
familiar.
qualified to serve as a subcommittee chair just because I'm a Democrat?
I do, as a woman who is endorsed by Planned Parenthood, I do not think you should be a sub-chair committee person. No, I do not. I'm pro-life at conception. And when they put you as subcommittee chairman of that committee, that was very offensive
That's
to me
not-
and my
but
voters.
Let me tell you, that's wrong. I am a subcommittee chairman of domestic relations.
Did the
which
committee
is-
change the name?
No, even if it's changed from family law, constitutional law has always been the committee that has dealt with the pro-life agenda. Con law. I have never, and no predecessor of mine has ever, in the family laws, probate and business laws, and now it's domestic relations because that's an area of the law that deals with the family court. It has nothing to do with the issues that you're talking about. I practice law, I practice in the probate court, and I want to dispel that. I've never even been on con law. I've never even been a member of con law. So, you know, there are lots of inaccuracies, and if we just had a conversation, instead of making everything so partisan and criticizing someone like Representative Stavronakis, who has done a yeoman's job in on this committee, I just think it helps and benefits all of us. We're 124 members to work together, and don't three or 2, whatever the number is, out of a majority of subcommittee chair people is not even representative of what this chamber is. It's even more Republicans are in the subcommittee chair than how many Democrats are in here.
I appreciate
percentage.
that as one of the Democrat subcommittee chairwoman that you'll get up and defend the other Democrat chairman subcommittee.
I will defend
Subcommittee
anyone
chairman.
when I think there's an injustice. And I'll tell you, every committee has a majority Republican membership, every subcommittee. So it's not as though a subcommittee chairperson is going to be able to make a difference when you have, in my particular committee, you have 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, whether I'm the subcommittee chair or not.
Who's on your subcommittee?
Mr. Caskey's recognized for a question.
Hold on just a minute. I would like to address some of the things that she just mentioned because I'm pretty sure that we have
Are we
subcommittees
not,
that
who's in
have-
charge? Mr. Speaker, I think I was recognized. Is that not right?
I did recognize you, Mr. Caskey, but she asked to finish her answer to Ms. Bernstein's question. So
I'm happy to oblige, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make sure I understand, you know, how the events are going to proceed.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Ms. Cromer.
So I would address that I would love to see every subcommittee because I'm pretty sure that there's a subcommittee, maybe even Representative Stavernakis, that doesn't have a Republican majority. Am I mistaken? Wait, hold on just a second.
What I can speak to, I didn't want to make the blanket, but if there are more Republicans than Democrats, it's probably unlikely that there are any subcommittees that have a majority of Democrats. But in judiciary, every committee, majority of that subcommittee is made up of Republicans. It's 3-2 on my particular committee.
I understand on yours, but what I'm saying is speaking here about the chairmanship and the different committees that here in this body where we have a supermajority makeup, and to have a Ways and Means that's deciding where the taxpayer money is going to go, that we don't have a Republican majority on this one subcommittee over Ways and Means. It's a Democrat majority on that committee, and that's what we're talking about, facts. There's no misaligning or misstating anything. That is what it is. It's on black and white somewhere.
Mr. Caskey's recognized for a question.
Oh, good.
For real this time?
That depends. Mr. Caskey's recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Ms. Cromer, I appreciate you taking my questions. I'm a little dismayed you wouldn't take questions from the majority leader, but you know that this proceeding is televised and live streamed, right?
Say that again.
You know that this proceeding is live streamed and televised, right?
Right here, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
I do understand that in this chamber, these meetings are 100%. Thank you, dear. In the committee meetings, they're not 100% streamed. I think you and I had a conversation up here that the funding is not always there, and I'm hoping that we're going to address that.
That's right, and I think we can return to that point. I guess where I was headed with that question was just to make sure you know that you can walk away right now. You don't have to stand there. You can walk away.
But you had a question.
I do. So that was the question. I'll try to do better in emphasizing the question mark. Now, the questions I have, unfortunately, are not about PPP and the organization of the body, but instead the budget, which, as it turns out, is what we're here to discuss today. And earlier, Representative Moore asked you a series of questions about the Freedom Caucus's alternative budget. And I'd like to return to that conversation because I think it's instructive for where we are at this juncture, because as you said several times, this process is something beyond just today. And so I'm hoping that you can help the members of this chamber and the people of South Carolina understand more about the process as you've broadly defined it. And as I heard your testimony, you said that you had public meetings. Can you tell us about the public meetings that you had to develop your alternate budget?
I appreciate. Can I go back to your first question about our agenda and trying to save money for the taxpayers of cutting the budget, which is what we told our taxpayers that we were going to do. We said we were going to come here and return money to the taxpayer and find the waste and cut the waste and cut down on the bureaucracy that's hurting every single one of our constituents in one way or the other. Okay. And so what we're doing—
Are you going to get to the question that I've asked you?
I am speaking, and Mr. Speaker, if you want to take care of decorum, I would appreciate that. It goes both ways. I'm answering—
Ma'am, I will take care of decorum. I think he just asked if you would answer the question he addressed. You don't have to answer it, but I think from a decorum standpoint, he gave you a question.
The first question was our alternative budget. This is, and the process of what we're doing right now. There's been a lot of saying about, oh, this is not the process. Why are we here today? Why did y'all just drop this yesterday? The fact of the matter is, this is the process. Who are you talking to? The people in here? Yeah, they're going to eat up every word you're saying, but our people at home who, yes, we meet with weekly, one way or the other. We listen to the people at home. That's why we're here. We listen. And that's what everyone in this chamber should be here for, is because they have heard the people in your district, what they want and what they need. Whether it's what your constituents need the same as what my constituents need, that's not for me to say. But what I'm saying is that a majority of the people, maybe even a supermajority of the people, campaign on accountability, transparency, returning the power back to the people. You're not going to do that by growing government and growing the budget every year. I don't care about the lobby or the special interest group. You can look
Ms.
at my tax
Cromer,
returns,
can
you
we
can look at my
talk?
company. I was successful before I got here. I can't say that for everyone in this chamber. But what I can say is that that might influence some of the decisions made in this chamber.
Ms. Cromer, I'm not even trying to take away your ability to speak and bumper sticker. I encourage you to do that if that's the language you need to use to communicate it. But the question, ma'am, is the process. I grant you that it's broader than the formal mechanisms which we describe in our rules. I grant it that you and your friends have created a new process. And I'm simply asking on behalf of the people of South Carolina, as we try to understand it, as you've insisted that we talk about it here today, if we could help understand that, because in a moment I'll get to questions about the actual amendment before us and the lack of information that you have about any of that, but in front I want to understand your process. And so these public meetings you've described.
Mr. Caskey, unfortunately, our first hour has expired.
Well, she's got a second.
You have an additional 30 minutes. Mr. Caskey, if you would put a question mark on it for us.
I'm trying, Mr. Speaker, but unfortunately, all of my questions have been met with delay, obfuscation, and attempts to go back to talking points. And so I'm trying to get to the question, Mr. Speaker. So, Ms. Cromer, let me try one more time. I am asking you about a process that you and the Freedom Caucus have undertaken. The meetings you've described in which you met with, quote, tens of thousands of people, a process that you identified as taking all year. Tell me about those meetings, please.
So let me address, you said a new process. This budget and the way the budget is done, this isn't new. Maybe the way that we're trying to shut people's voices down and have an open debate about the process, maybe that's new. The meetings that we have, I'm sorry that you don't understand what it's like to have meetings with the people in your district. Those are the meetings we've had. Those are the hearings that I just said we have. We hear the people. We understand what they're going through, what they're facing at home. We know what we campaigned on. We know what we promised the people. And it wasn't to grow the budget. Yet again, it's not to increase the government. It's to decrease the scope and size of government and to return as much money to the taxpayer as possible. These aren't our dollars.
Okay.
These
When
are
I
the
use the word hearing, I'm referring to the process of having a meeting that is announced to the public, which the public can attend, which when the resource is available, we can live stream. So that's how I'm using the term hearing here. A process which we have conducted, and I'm sure someone can add up for us the number of Ways and Means Committee meetings we've had to conduct these hearings. I'm asking you, can you tell us about one of the hearings that you've held?
Okay, let me go back to what I was saying. That I understand.
Please don't. Please answer the question.
So I've answered your question more than once, but I understand that you don't understand what it's like to be in touch with your constituents and what they need. That's what I'm saying. The hearings that we've had, I've listened to the live streams. I've been at the Ways and Means meeting, but what you don't understand, what you're failing to understand, this is the process. People, this is the process. Right now, we're talking about the budget. We're talking about increasing spending yet again in public. This is the process. Nobody wants to talk about it in public because we don't want the people of South Carolina to know that we're taking your tax dollar that you work, you get up and go to work for every day, and we're not being serious about it.
All right, speaking of not serious, you've told us now that I don't understand, and we'll just have to add that to the long list of things that I don't understand. C'est la vie. What I'd like to, though, turn to is, given that you now have defined any meeting you have with anybody at any point, any time, about anything as a public meeting, which defies our existing law, let's turn now to the actual part of the budget that we're on here. In Section 48, the Sea Grant Consortium. Now, you have taken great pains to make sure that we know this is about returning money, that there's in fact a dollar figure you see is cutting from this agency that will then benefit the people of South Carolina, and that will enable us to reduce taxes in some way, shape, or form. I think is the argument that you have made. If you disagree with that, I welcome the correction, but I think that's a steel-manned argument of what you've brought forward. What I would like to understand about this particular section of the budget that you are opposing is specifically, if it's only $1 that you don't like, if you don't like the $1,387,262, if you don't like those dollars, that's fine. Tell us that. But if there's something at the agency that you find objectionable, whether that's the scientific research they do, whether that is the benefit they provide in protecting our coast, enabling our tourism industry, enabling our agriculture industries, if you find any of that objectionable, I'd like to do that now because you've insisted time and again that we discuss it. So please, ma'am, if you would, discuss the Sea Grant Consortium and what they specifically do and what you don't like.
So I will go to say, first of all, about the public meeting that you're referring to. What I'm saying is that the meetings we have are with our constituents. We go to the public meetings here, but back at home where it matters the most, that's where we are meeting with the people. We hear the people. We are here to represent the people that we have listened to. That's why we are here in this body. Now, what your people, what you're representing them, that may be different than my people. I hope that's the way you campaigned. I hope that you would take this. You talked about tax reduction. The only way we can have true tax reform is to cut spending. If we truly want tax reform, we have to cut spending. That is important. And I'm serious about that. This right here, it doesn't help the upstate. That's what I'm saying. I think that we have a lot of lap over, and we need to get serious about, I think some people in here have talked about Doge and putting all those different things up. I don't see that in a budget right now that we're proposing that it's the largest in state history yet again. Yet again, I would be interested to hear where we're cutting money and returning money to the taxpayers in this budget when we're passing the largest budget in state history. If you're truly serious about tax reform, you cut spending. It's not that hard.
Okay, Ms. Cromer, I'm buoyed by the fact that you've recognized we perhaps campaigned on different things. I campaigned on common sense. You clearly didn't. I understand that. What I'm now trying to figure out, though, is insofar as you have an objection to the funding of this program, again, limiting our conversation not to wax poetic about the state of how tax cuts might go. I guess I could ask you, do you know how much money is being returned to the taxpayers because of this budget? Do you know that number?
I understand that what you said about common sense, it is common sense that if you are going to have true tax reform, that you cut spending. And that is common sense. That is business sense. That if you want to return the money back to the taxpayer, that you stop the spending.
Okay, let's talk about this cutting you want to do specific to the Sea Grant Consortium. What is it that you're cutting here that you find programmatically? Or are all dollars the same to you?
All dollars with this agency here?
In the state budget.
Oh, in the whole budget? Like I said, please.
Does it matter? Let me ask you that then. Does it matter to you at all what the dollars are being spent on, or are they just dollars that should be cut irrespective of the consequence to anybody and anything? Should we just cut all the dollars because we don't like the dollars?
So I think every dollar down to, I think I've mentioned every penny matters, because that's not our dollar or our penny. It's the taxpayer dollar.
Well, let's talk about the $1,387,262 taxpayer dollars on the line here in this amendment that you're now speaking as a proponent for.
I think
what is it about those dollars and the investment that the people of South Carolina are not getting that you find objectionable?
You mentioned previously about when someone else is speaking, that you don't speak over them. I think there's a video of it somewhere. But I think we have that's a rule or something that I was answering your question and then you interject. So what you were talking about is the dollar and the penny, and that's not ours. It's ours to return to the taxpayer. I would love to return more. You say we're returning money to the taxpayer. Yes, we have property taxes that we need to be sending relief to. We have income taxes that we need to be sending relief to. But to say it's a record when you're given 0.2% of an increase, that's what we're here to talk about. And you said common sense. Common sense is here to really comb through this budget, line by line, item by item. If it's a wasteful dollar or a penny, absolutely cut it. Wherever,
so in your mind, there's
everywhere that we have to.
Are
And
you
what I'm
distinguishing
saying is
between the two
that-
things?
All
Ms.
right,
Cromer,
folks,
you're
again,
filibustering.
I know she's as excited to answer as you are to ask. Let's put a little space between it. So ask a question, and we'll allow her to answer it. Ms. Cromer, we're going to both extend each other courtesy,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Speaker. I'm trying to get a point where we can have a discussion, Mr. Speaker, about the issues before this body, because it's very serious, Mr. Speaker. And the fact that Ms. Cromer won't respond to questions and resorts to using empty platitudes of a script is not helpful to the discussion, Mr. Speaker. And so that's what I'm trying to get to, is that. And unfortunately, we keep finding ourselves circling back to digressions that just regurgitate the same crayon-written talking points. And so, Mr. Speaker, if I could just ask that we get to a discussion.
What did he just
Wait, everybody hold on. Mr. Kilmartin, for what purpose do you rise? I'm about to do that exact thing. Mr. Caskey, let me remind you, as I was reminded one time when I was attempting to do a cross-examination, that we're not in a courtroom. She can choose to answer or not answer. You can continue to ask, but she can give whatever answer she chooses, unlike a courtroom where the judge can order them to say yes or no and then explain. So as the attorneys in the room know, it's a little different in the courtroom. So if you'll please ask a question, Ms. Cromer. If you want to answer it, answer it. If you want to evade it, evade it. But let's ask and answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. My passions run high when we're dealing with matters that impact the state of South Carolina, and when they are frustrated by intentional filibustering and demagoguery, my tensions rise, Mr. Speaker. And so, what is
Yes, Mr. Kilmartin. Well, I think you've observed exactly what's going on, Mr. Kilmartin. I'm trying to rein it in. Mr. Caskey, please, without further social commentary, please ask a question that she can then choose to respond to or not. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought we were discussing the point of order that had been raised, but we'll go back to the questioning then if we need to.
Mr. White, I'm dealing with it, sir. He's asking a question. We're going to answer it. We're not going to get it. I clearly understand what you're asking. I'm doing my best to control it. Mr. Caskey, please ask a question.
Yes, sir. Ms. Cromer, do you have anything to offer this body or anybody who's watching at all, substantively about the spending that's happening in this part of the budget? Or is the sole and exclusive point that you have to offer us, again, this mild, tepid lecture about budgeting? Do you have anything to offer substantively?
I think we're offering a lot in this budget when we're trying to return money to the taxpayer. When we're talking about this specific section, when you have a large majority of it that's not really helping the everyday person in South Carolina, yes, I think it's okay to cut it. And I understand you said your passion to serve and to, I don't know what your passion is exactly, but my passion that brought me here is to represent the people in my district. And I'm sorry that you're having a hard time understanding that. There's nothing else happening here other than trying to cut the budget and trying to decrease the scope of government. And if you have any ideas of how to do that, I would welcome them. But you're about to try and pass a budget that is growing yet again. It's increasing spending. It's increasing the scope of government. You're all for that, evidently. I am not. That is not why I'm here. I'm here to decrease the scope of government and to decrease spending. Why are you here?
Do you think there's any role at all for government?
Do what?
Do you think there's any role in 21st century America for government, or is this just something else we should just revert to a system of anarchy? Is that what you're suggesting? Or do you see any role for government?
How is decreasing the scope of government eliminating government? No one said eliminate government but you. Maybe that's in your mind. Maybe you're projecting. I don't know you.
Okay. I don't know if you understand what a question is and how a question works, but I'm asking the question and looking for your answer. The asking of a question is not the assertion of a proposition. All right, so let me try again. is there anything that government does, in your view, that is worthy of funding?
Yes, I just said that I've never said we should eliminate government. Decreasing spending is not elimination. I didn't say we go down to zero and cut everything off. I said we decrease the spending and decrease the scope of government, which, like I said again, most people in here campaigned on, and what we're here to do. I don't understand why that's lost on so many people, and try making the process seem like it's convoluted and hard. It's not, and it shouldn't be. And if it is, it's that way for a reason. It was made that way for a reason, and we need to undo it. Let's work together to do it. You want to decrease spending? Come up with your plan. Show me something, but don't just rubber stamp a yes vote just because every dollar that you have you're spending and allocating. You're not trying to return it to the taxpayer. Who says no? Can you say no to the budget? I can, because it's chock full of crap.
All right. As artful as ever as we've come to expect from you. I guess what I would ask you, though, is if there is some role for government, I think we can agree on that proposition, then the question is, what of those functions should we fund? And all I'm hearing from you is that this part of the budget is something that we should not fund, again, in furtherance, and I'm trying to give your argument the best face that I can, is that by not funding this, we will have reduced the size and scope of government, returned money to the taxpayers, and done that whole shtick. But specifically, if we agree that there is some role for government, and that government must be implicitly funded, right? So some dollars have to go to the government we agree exists. The debate and the question, the discussion, as you called it, then has to be about which of those functions should the government spend those dollars on. And so we can't cut all of the dollars because we have to spend it. And so we extend that and get to where we are now with regard to the Sea Grant Consortium. And now we're back to actually the amendment before us, which is, as you suggest that we ought to cut this line item, I'm asking you, what is it about ensuring we have sustainable fisheries that you don't think is a function that the government should engage in?
So you mentioned that you want me to talk about where I want to spend the money. Previously, you said you want to talk about and keep it to this section of the budget. But now you're asking me which section of the budget that I think we should be spending money on? Am I following you? Are those the questions you're asking?
You definitely are not. What I'm asking you about is in Section 48 of the state budget, which is the amendment currently before us, and the Sea Grant Consortium. And I'm asking you, if we start with the proposition that the government has to exist, if we start with the proposition that that government that has to exist has to be funded with taxpayer dollars, then our discussion has to flow at some point to the breadth and scope of that undertaking. That's conceptually what's going on here. That's several big words. I don't know if you're with me, but if at the point now we are talking about the Sea Grant Consortium and the money that you want to take away from it, because as you say, the government shouldn't fund those things, what is it, I'll ask again, about ensuring that our state has sustainable fisheries and sustainable aquaculture that you think is not a prudent use of taxpayer monies for a prudent taxpayer or for a prudent government interest?
So I would say that any money, and most people, I would say 100% of the people in this body would say that their constituents want the roads fixed. And that's what I would propose, that any money that we have that we can fix our roads, that would be great, our bridges. But what we need to do is come together collectively. This is, they have climate change and all the research that's that is against the values of most people in my district. So what I would say is that we come together, find ways to decrease the scope of government, lower the budget, and then we can talk about that. But I can tell you, I've been standing up here for a while and my legs are hurting. I appreciate your questions. I'm sorry that we can't come to the same conclusion on this, but I'd be happy to talk with you about how to decrease this budget, and I would
Cromer,
welcome you to open sections that we could work on this together.
Dodged, ducked, dipped, and dived, and dodged every possible substantive question about this particular amendment. And so I'm trying to figure out, as you take an axe to this part of the budget, not a scalpel, not saying let's eliminate climate research, not saying let's eliminate scientific literacy and workforce development. You're saying in total, you want to eliminate all of it, which includes sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. And so you talk about roads. What should we do with the tax money that this state takes in as a result of our fisheries and our tourism that happens along the coast? Do you think that money should go to those roads or not?
I think what we should do is take the budget very seriously, and if you want to come together and talk about how we can cut spending and return more money to the taxpayers and help them with the things that are hurting them, I would be glad to have that conversation. But I've taken up enough time in this body, and I'll be happy to turn this over
Ms.
to
Cromer,
you.
you use the word serious again, and I'm not sure that word means what you think it means. Because as I look it up here, it says serious means
Mr. Caskey, she has stepped away, sir.